Yeah, YouTube works too, so we can do live streaming on YouTube. We'll see how that goes. Mhm. Yes, this session will be recorded. It will probably be available right after tomorrow. Usually it takes about a day for Zoom to kind of process the video. It might end up on YouTube before that, but it's going to be recorded on YouTube and it's going to be recorded on Zoom. And I will include those links, so that's no problem. Today's course is mostly, well, I'm going to start off with kind of a Q&A and see how everybody's doing. And then we're going to talk a little bit about queuing and managing lines and a few things like that. I also want to give you a couple of things on what's going to come down the road too. So. Hi, Jazz.
Oh, hello.
I think you're the only other person doing live video today, so
Yeah.
welcome. You don't have to do live video if you don't want to, but no problem either way.
Oh,
It's nice to see your face.
there we go.
Hey, there's another
There's
one.
Lisa.
Hey,
Hello.
how are you?
I am doing as best as I can.
Aren't we all?
Yes,
It's a
sir.
weird world. Yeah. So did everyone find enough toilet paper, I guess? I guess that's the thing now. There's so many different memes on toilet paper. It's gotten ridiculous. I'm kind of over it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty over all the coronavirus memes too.
Yeah. But they're not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
So, how's everyone's job? I mean,
I'm still working. I'm a bank teller, and they just announced today that they're doing drive-through only. But I'm also utilizing any other resources I can to not go into work, honestly, because it's getting nuts. And I think it's just best to stay at home, to be honest. I don't know why we haven't gone on lockdown as Florida. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, same.
it's going to be really weird going forward with how many things are going to change. And I think there's going to be some industries where they realize they really don't need as many people and they won't rehire as many. And I think people are becoming more and more comfortable with Amazon and things like that too. So Amazon's hiring like 150,000 people or something. It's something ridiculous.
Same thing with Walmart. They're hiring a lot of people as well, and they're increasing the pay.
And Aldi.
Yeah,
Aldi.
most retail places. I'm sure Target too, and all those places.
Yeah. And Publix is hiring too. Just putting that out there. Publix is actually one of the better companies to work for because their stock, they give you, the only way you can buy Publix stock is if you actually are a Publix employee.
Wow.
And their stock actually, it's a private stock, but it does really well. So I know people that have made a lot of money just working for Publix. I'm not saying that you're going to school to work at Publix, but you know.
Desperate times.
Yeah, I know. So, but yeah, even if you just work at Publix for a little while, you can, get some stock after you're there for so long.
Have you guys read the article about the Chili's franchise in the Orlando airport?
No.
Oh man, it was horrible. they called in all of their employees and paid them the minimum wage for like a server, which is already significantly low, made them all deep clean the restaurant, and then took them out of the airport and fired them all by one.
Wow, that's gonna be a PR.
Yes, so
Garbage
Chili's is trying to fight it back, stating that it is not the actual Chili's brand, that is just a franchisee, but that is horrible. So just keep your heads up, guys. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not saying it's gonna happen to you guys or anything, but
Yeah.
be mindful of that. I don't know why companies are doing that. That's horrible.
That's HMS Toast. They are a institutionalized food provider. So a lot of places like airports and companies, they'll outsource essentially their cafeterias, and then they will open up franchises in the cafeterias. So that's how you have like corporate headquarters that happen to have a Starbucks. It's probably not run by actual Starbucks. It's probably run by one of those institutionalized providers. Disney uses Seduxo Magic, I believe, for their internal cafeterias and stuff. And then they have every single location, I think, has a Subway at every park.
Wow.
So I remember walking through Disney California Adventure one time, and I'm just walking through Cars Land. And if you've ever been there, Cars Land is really intricately themed. You feel like you're in the world of cars, and that's all you see. And if you actually know, the layout of the park, backstage behind Cars Land, there is a cast member cafeteria, and they have a Subway. I think they used to have a Sbarro, like for pizza and stuff, and then they had like generic food, And I'm walking through Cars Land, and I see this kid, and this kid is with his mom, and he goes, and the kid has to be no older than about 4 years old. He goes, "Mom, I smell Subway. Can we get some cookies?" And mom is like, "There's no Subway here. You're insane." And and I'm like, if only she knew.
That poor kid.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the kid. But yeah, don't be, if you ever have kids, don't be so dismissive. Just because it appears there's no Subway there doesn't mean there's not. And Subway has really good cookies. I don't know why I like their cookies, but I do.
Subway cookies are fire.
They're okay.
Publix cookies are the best.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. And I think they're pretty cheap right now. I don't know if they're BOGO, but they're like buy two, and it's like 2 for $4 or something right now. So chocolate chip cookies make everything better.
Definitely, until you get diabetes.
Oh no.
I mean, just saying.
Debbie Downer here.
I'm being factual. I apologize. I'm stating facts though.
No, it's true. Yeah, be safe. So,
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to wait for a couple more people to get into the class. We have about 25 people on the call now. So just to recap, I'm going to mute everybody as they come in. So you can unmute yourself if you want to, but I'm muting everyone just right now. So here's how this is going to work. We're going to see how this meeting goes today. If it goes well, we'll do it again, next week. I'm not going to require attendance to these things. I'd love for you to be there because I think there's a lot that can be said of a face-to-face interaction, especially with everything that's going on right now. But if you can't be here, if something else is happening, these are all going to be recorded. Now, when they're recorded, they don't show up immediately. That's really important to understand. I'm going to put this on my own YouTube channel. If you want to, you can start following my channel on YouTube. It's literally just Bill Zanetti, all one word on YouTube, so you can do that. So they will be there, and I'll include links to that. But I would recommend that you actually follow me on YouTube and do the whole reminder thing with the bell and all that, and that way you'll know. I'm going to have videos on my YouTube channel from my other courses as well. So I'm going to label them, you are the theme park class, but there's also a product development theme park class. So if you're going on my YouTube videos, and you'll start seeing, more and more as they pile up from different classes that I teach, you might be interested in it and you're free to watch it and anything. But for the live streams, try to keep it, I'll try to do it either on Zoom or YouTube, or if, Zoom doesn't work out and YouTube doesn't work out, we'll figure out a different streaming method. But from all the professors that I've talked to, most of them are okay and comfortable using Zoom. And Zoom will also add on closed captions, I believe, if we need it. This will supposedly allow, I mean, if someone wants to do closed captions, we can do that. But otherwise, I think there's an API that will automatically attempt to create closed captions for these videos. So that way you can, if you enter in a place where you can't like listen, you can actually read the videos. And YouTube will do that automatically. So that might be easier for you. But anyway, yeah, you don't have to physically be here during these. It's just better that you are. That way we can have the two-way method of communication. But you will have to watch all of these each week. And there's only going to be one, face-to-face meeting each week. But we'll have some questions based on that and everything. So as far as I had a couple questions that popped up over the last couple, not really couple days, couple weeks now. A lot of questions about how attendance is going to change, how the grading will change and everything. So here's how that will work. We've only met for maybe half, a little more than half of the semester. I can't do half because, that's, it'll probably be like 3% because your attendance was 5% of your grade to begin with. And then there was an additional 5% that was those randomized quizzes and things. So what I'll do is I'll reduce both of those. So there'll be 5% total to be, that portion of your grade. And then the other 5% will be allocated to the other categories because there's no, no attendance requirement going on because we're not physically meeting each other. And that's how that'll work. I'm not going to do any randomized quizzes that are going to pop up during these lectures, that you might have questions on a regular quiz that you'll take each week based on these lectures and other videos that you'll watch and everything. But you don't have to, be here right now, so. I want to require you to get Disney Plus as part of this. You will have a free week trial no matter what. If you already have Disney Plus, that's great. I want you to watch the Imagineering documentary series. There's 6 episodes in total. And I'm going to post a link. You don't have to watch it, this week, but in the next couple weeks, you'll have time to do that. If you like binging them, I think they're great. Each episode is between 60 and 75 minutes, I believe. So each episode's basically the length of one class. I find them incredibly helpful for the material that we're talking about in the theme park class. It really will give you a lot of background in how we design theme parks. So that's going to be a requirement. There will be quiz questions that will be based on those. If you have issues getting Disney Plus, again, there's like a free trial that you'll be able to get. If you are in a place that's not the United States, Disney Plus may not be available in your country just yet. I think we have someone in France. In France, Disney Plus isn't available, I think, until April 4th or something like that. So I'm not going to have anything due in terms of the quizzes until April. And if you want to get a head start and start watching all of the Disney Plus, Disney Imagineering series, you can start that right now. You have to watch all 6 episodes, and that will be due in April. Yes, Ryan, that is a good suggestion. You can use a VPN if you're not familiar with that. That's a virtual private network. I actually have a link in the helpful page. It's like in the very first module of the course. If you can't access something on Netflix or wherever you are, try connecting through a VPN and see if it works that way. It kind of fakes your location. So it'll pretend that you're in the United States, even if you're not, or wherever you are. And that might work with Disney Plus. I don't know, because I'm not in France, so I don't know how it'll work there, but that's a really big thing. I don't know do we have any other international students here? You can unmute your mic and let me know, where you are if you're not in the United States right now. Anybody else? I know we have France.
I am in Austria right now.
In Austria, well, you have Disney Plus, I think, immediately, just as of this week.
Exactly, from the 24th of March, I think.
Yes, so starting tomorrow, you have access to it, and it will be the Disney Plus Imagineering series, so you'll be able to watch it there, no problem. Anyone else?
Yes, I'm in Italy.
Italy, I think you also have Disney Plus starting tomorrow.
Could be so. I think I have.
Yeah. In Italy, I wish you the best there. Wow. Yeah, that's good. Not as bad as New York. If anyone's in New York, good luck. But anyone else outside of the country? So we have France, Austria, and Italy. I'll keep that in mind, and I'll make sure that Disney Plus
Actually,
is
I'm not in
available for you.
France, but yeah.
You're in France? Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Oh, where are you?
Here in Orlando.
Oh, still. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. No, I don't want
Yeah.
to risk going back and then I don't come back here. I don't want to risk that.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand. So, okay. So basically just Italy and Austria then. Is anyone in France then? Do we have anyone in France? I thought someone emailed me and said they were in France. Maybe it was a different class that I had. Oh, maybe I'm confused. So anyway, yeah, Italy and Austria should be available though starting tomorrow. So Haiti. Okay, in Haiti, I don't know if Disney Plus will be available in Haiti or not. Let me do some research on that. That's Maxim Villard. Okay, I hear you loud and clear. So I'm going to type just in case you can't hear me. I see. It is not, but you can try the VPN. Okay, great. Well, let me know how that goes and just send me a message, if you still can't get to it, and we'll figure out a different way for you to do that assignment. But you'll lose a little bit if you don't watch it because it's a really good documentary. Great. All right. So today, I want to open it up for a Q&A real quick. If you have any other questions that I haven't just covered about the class, midterm grades were pretty good, but if you have any questions on that or anything, this is the time to ask. So you can go ahead and unmute your mic if you want to ask a question. There is no group project for this course, so I don't know. Did I ever say we had a group project? We don't have a group project in this course, so somebody just asked that on the chat. So any other questions?
I was actually just wondering, what were your thoughts on like how Disney closed and everything like that? Because I know we were just talking about it the week before spring break, which was the last time we were even in class, and it was kind of just like an uncertain, topic at the time. So I just want to know what your thoughts are now.
Well, I think it's serious when Disney closes. I was really surprised that they actually closed so quickly, but it shows the severity of this virus.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like it was almost overnight. All of a sudden, it was trending on Twitter that Mickey died or has the virus or whatever. I was blown away that it happened so quick.
Yeah. I think we were all blown away. It was just crazy. And it seems like a lot of you thought we had a group project. Maybe I've mentioned that earlier in the course that we might have one or not, but I don't think I ever posted anything about it. So I apologize. There won't be any group project for this course. Do I think they will extend it to April? The closure of Disney and the theme parks? Absolutely. I don't think it's going to open up in April at all. Inside the industry, I have a lot of ears everywhere, and the rumblings I hear is not until after the summer. So it might be a very long time until the parks reopen. Epcot especially, because there's all the construction going on at Epcot. So when the parks do reopen, I don't expect it to be a full opening of everything. There was an article that was posted today on, I believe it was the Disney blog, and it talked about, how theme parks will reopen and how it'll work. And they're suggesting the idea of having very, very scheduled vacations. So you have certain times you have to be in each place, almost like if you're on a cruise line, like you'd stay in your hotel most of the time, and then you'd go out on an excursion, and they'd take you in a small group on an excursion to the park. And each group would go to, different attractions at different times. I don't know if it'll be like that, but that's what this article suggested. I haven't heard that personally with rumblings, but it does kind of make sense that they don't want to have a lot of people that gather in the same place. And we're going to talk about queuing today and how people wait in lines and how that will be impacted by Corona and everything. Because if you think about it, you have hundreds of people, if not thousands of people waiting in one line in one place at the same time. And we just can't do that anymore, at least not during this thing. So that'll probably change. But yeah, I think your guess is kind of as good as mine if, when these parks are going to reopen, but no, I don't see them reopening in April. It's far too soon. I know they haven't officially announced anything saying that, but it's unfathomable for me to believe that they would open next month. So good question. Anybody else have any questions about the course or anything else that's going on?
Actually, I have another
That
question.
applies to Universal too. Yeah, go ahead.
For the Imagineering documentary for the 6 episodes, do you have any suggestions on what to focus on if when we're taking notes?
You know what? The way they're presented, they're kind of done in a chronological order. So the first one will talk about, the beginning of Disneyland and how Imagineering as a company unit has grown over the years. So I would say, focus on the people that are interviewed, know what they actually worked on. So I think it's in the first or second episode, you will meet Bob Gurr. And Bob Gurr is this crazy Disney Imagineer who he's retired now, but he's like the most energetic Imagineer you'll ever meet. He designed all the ride vehicles at Disneyland. He designed the Matterhorn and everything. And he actually, in the documentary, he'll actually sign a piece of the Matterhorn and stuff. And, as long as you can remember the names of some of these Imagineers and who worked on what, at least in how they're presented in this documentary, that'll be a big help. Also the process of how the creative process works and what happened with Imagineering, because it's a story about corporations, going through bad times and how Imagineering got basically eaten up by, other divisions of the company, and the company itself wasn't doing all that well for a while, and a lot of people got laid off. So if you can concentrate on, how a division of a company like Imagineering, it's creative, which means it just kind of spends money, doesn't really make money on its own. It builds things that make money, but they themselves lose money. But it's best if they are given a lot of creative freedom in order to be so imaginative. When you manage a creative, if you try to it's like you have two different types of people. You have your people, your round pegs and round holes, and they fit in just perfectly, and they are perfectly happy with doing everything very systematically, and that's exactly how everything will be. And they're perfectly happy working that way. And then you have, they're not even a shape, they're like gelatinous, and they like to be free, and they'll fill the space of any container, but they might not feel all that great trying to be molded into a different shape. They're just going to return back into their blob form. So they'll go through that little round hole, but when they come out, they're going to go back into a blob at the end. And that's kind of how you can look at creatives in my experience. They like to do things differently in ways. I mean, they will conform for a very small amount of time. Let's say that the file formats that they turn in their work, they have to be exactly like this, and very to a key exactly, so everything is organized, and even the titles of the files have to be that way. And they'll do that, but you're not going to be able to say you have 2 days to come up with a new concept. It doesn't work. You have to go through a lot of, not necessarily brainstorming sessions, but creative inspiration sessions. You might have to go travel somewhere. You might have to, I've seen things where Imagineers will actually, I'm not suggesting anyone do this, but Imagineers will do drugs on purpose in a controlled substance environment, and a controlled environment, and just to expand whatever they're trying to expand. So it gets really, really out there. And when you try to put someone like that in a corporate environment, it doesn't work always. So yeah, sometimes weird things happen. The Steve Jobs method. Yeah, Steve Jobs, I mean, he went out to Asia and kind of lost himself. And I think that's where he discovered, can't remember what religion he kind of discovered. I think wasn't he Buddhist, I want to say. But I know Hindu. I'm sorry, I apologize. So yeah, he went out there and really, he tried a few different types of drugs out there and everything, and he came back a very changed person when he returned. And I don't know if that's, necessary to be successful, but it's what he did. So I'm not, saying that you should go out and try drugs. That's the opposite of what I'm saying. Don't do that. But it's important to know that some people will come to their own ways to be creative, and you cannot shun them for, having that creative process. Be very careful with people like that. Because the second that you start, putting in, especially if they're policies that just don't make any sense at all, they're going to want to push back away from those policies, because it just seems like it's like busy work. If you have a professor that just assigns things over and over and over again, and there's no, you're not learning anything from it. Have you ever had busy work where it's just like, summarize every single chapter over and over, and you're not really learning a whole lot because nothing's being related to how things exist in the real world? If you've ever had any professors or teachers like that, you understand exactly. It's that feeling that, I'm not getting anything out of this. Why is this policy in place? Why am I doing this? And it's a real bummer, man. Like that's what it is. So yeah, that's how you have to look at the Imagineering series. I probably went a little too far into that, but does that give you an idea? So any other questions before we talk about queuing? I guess I'll take that as a no, or you all left, or my connection's bad. So somebody say something so I know you can hear me.
Something, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So, all right. So for queuing, we're going to talk a little bit about it only for about, 10, 15 minutes. And I'm going to post some other videos on web courses, and you'll take a look at those. So queuing theory is the science of waiting in line. It's actually my specialty. It's what I'm. Give me 1 second here. Sorry about that. So queuing theory, it's a science of waiting in line. It's actually what I concentrate in for my research at UCF anyway. And it's a science of waiting in line, and it's not necessarily how long someone waits. It's actually how long they perceive they waited. Now, sometimes time is of the essence, and people are definitely, looking at their watch over and over. How many of you have been in the TSA line, at an airport trying to get on a plane, and you're waiting and waiting, and as if you're in a rush, if you haven't gotten there early enough, you really start to worry if you're going to make your flight or not. TSA guidelines don't really restrict, how close it can be to, boarding your flight, but most airlines do. They say, if you're not at the gate at least 15 minutes before your flight, they reserve the right to cancel your ticket and, put someone else in your seat. So that's really important to understand there. And that's why a TSA queue is different than a queue in a theme park. And that's the first thing I want to talk about with queuing, that there's two different types. There are voluntary queues on one side, and then you have involuntary queues on the other. Now, your voluntary queues are the ones that are in theme parks and restaurants where if you don't want to wait for this ride, you don't have to. You can go do a different ride. You can go eat at a different restaurant. But the required queues, the involuntary ones, those are when you're waiting for things that you have no other option. You have to be there waiting for it. These are things like you're waiting for a train at a train station. It's not even a physical queue. You're not waiting in line, but you have to be there, and you're waiting until this train comes so you can get on the train. It's when you're driving around and you're in traffic and you have to wait because there's cars in front of you. That is a queue. Whether you think that it's a queue because it is or not, because you might actually enjoy driving, or you might be on the phone or something else, you are in a queue. And when you're in those, involuntary queues, that time is going by, but you'll try to distract yourself so you don't concentrate on the traffic or anything. The TSA is an example of an involuntary queue. And that's really important to understand, because the TSA queue is not the same, and you use different techniques from that queue versus a queue in a theme park, because there's a required amount of time that it has to take place within so you can get onto your plane. Now, keeping that in mind, we're going to focus on queues and structure of queues now. And we're talking about voluntary queues for this class, not necessarily the involuntary ones, because this class is about theme parks. So if you want to talk about involuntary queues, that's a different class, and you can message me on the outside, but this is strictly about voluntary queuing. So if you have multiple options for attractions and you get a wait time guide like you would normally on the Disney app, you would see that you can open up the app and it will show you, how many queues there are and how long the wait times are for each queue. Now, if I do this right now, it's not going to show me because, the park is closed. But normally on a Disney, I don't know if you can see this that well. This is the Magic Kingdom right now. They have basically, cleared off this app entirely. And if I click show list of wait times, it just says there are no results in this category currently. So that's kind of a bummer that I can't show you that directly. But normally it would show you every single thing that you could do in the park that requires you to wait in a queue, and it would show you wait times. Now, we call that a traditional queue, a standby queue, where you basically just wait in a line and you are there until you have time to actually ride, until there's room for you. Now, this has to mean this type of queue is dependent on the capacity of the ride. Now, capacity for attractions is dependent on how the attraction was built. And you have something called a dispatch interval, and you have the amount of people on a ride vehicle. And I'm going to post a little capacity video just so you understand the basics of that. But the only two factors that matter about how many people you can put on a ride per hour are the amount of people that can go per ride vehicle and how often they're being dispatched, how often those vehicles go out onto the ride track. Those are the only two things. A lot of people think that you can, alter that by other means, but that's just not true. So that capacity, let's say that you have an attraction that, has people that have 1,000 people an hour, or even 2,000 people an hour. That capacity is finite. You can't get any more than that. You have a theoretical, which is your maximum. We talked about that earlier in the class a little bit. And that's your theoretical maximum capacity. But you have your actual one, which includes, how long it will take for people to get into wheelchairs and everything else. And this relates to the queue itself because you have to divide it. So 80% of people will be put into a different type of queue. And then the 20% of people will go in that traditional standby queue. And that 80%, that is your fast pass and queue. And also sometimes it's like VIP tours will go through that queue and things. And we call those altogether, we call those an expedited queue. There are different types of expedited queues. So with FastPass, that's one type of expedited queue. Universal also has Universal Express Plus. Now the difference between those, if you're familiar with the parks, Universal Express Plus, you pay an extra additional amount right at the beginning of the day, and then you go to every single attraction and you wait no longer than usually about 15 minutes for every single one. You don't have a certain time you have to come back. That works because you have to pay to use it. If it was free, then everyone would go to every attraction immediately. And that would cause a huge problem. So in order to make it free, you have to space everyone out so they're not all coming at the same time. Because again, you only have that amount of people, that 2,000 people per hour for each attraction. So you have to spread out these people returning all day long. So you can do that either with money, where you say it's going to be more expensive on certain days. That's what Universal does with Universal Express for their expedited queue system. Or you do it with time, which is Disney's system, and that's FastPass. And that FastPass Plus allows you to choose, up to 3 attractions a day, plus additional attractions if you're in the park, and you choose a different time for each one. And that's based, they actually, take about 75% of the attraction's capacity and they allocate that toward FastPass. Now that remaining percentage goes towards additional things that come up during the day. So you might be directed to an expedited queue, or they might have a physically different way to get there in the case that you're taking something like a VIP tour through a park. So Universal's parks, they have a VIP tour program. If you pay extra and do that, then you don't have to wait in line. And you don't even have to wait in the express line. They will actually what's called backdoor you. And that's an additional type of expedited queue, is backdooring you, and that goes straight to the actual access point to the ride vehicle. And that can be really important, especially if you're a celebrity. Disney usually doesn't sell expedited queuing to that level. Usually they'll put you through FastPass if you do one of their tours, unless you're a celebrity. So if you have Katy Perry going into the park, for example, she is someone that would get bombarded by people, or Taylor Swift, if you're, Team Taylor, whatever. But if you really, see celebrities in the park, you're going to attack them. And so they have to kind of be protected. And that goes even when they're boarding a ride vehicle. So they'll put them on, they'll bring them up through the exit sometimes, or through a back door. They'll go backstage, or, back of house, and they'll go straight onto the ride and go right back out. Because they still want to ride the ride. And they have families and everything, but they can't, because of their stature, they just can't do it. Yes, at Jungle Cruise, you take high profile celebrities through the exit and right on the boat. Thank you, Gianna. That is very helpful. So if I want to see some high profile celebrities, just stay at the exit of the Jungle Cruise. That's what you're telling me. Waldorf Astoria, they go through the back if they want to. Thank you, Jazz. Yeah, that's cool. I want to see The Rock go on the Jungle Cruise. I think that'd be fun. So I don't know why The Rock is on my mind, because he did the Jungle Cruise film that's supposed to come out this year. Who knows if it'll get delayed or whatnot because of all this stuff. But I also just watched Jumanji, and the second Jumanji, Jumanji 3, yeah, right, Jungle Cruise, yeah. I think it's a little bit different, Greg, but that's a good one. But yeah, so you have that type of queue as well. Any questions so far on the different types of queues and what's considered voluntary or involuntary, or if you have any questions, if the different way of approaching an attraction?
No questions on my end.
Okay. Anybody else?
Is there a difference in title between like the inside where you get closer to the ride and you can have like interactive things and it's more fun, versus when it's so long that you have to kind of stand outside and there's not stuff to do?
Yeah, actually, you're right. So you bring up a very good point. So you're referring to an extended queue, and the queue where there's stuff to see and everything, they want you to see that on purpose. All right. It's there to basically make you think you're not waiting as long as you are. And that's the psychological tricks that I was talking about that we employ to make you feel, because again, the actual time that you wait doesn't matter. What matters is how long you perceive that you have waited to do an attraction. And so you don't want people to really skip all that stuff, because you've spent a lot of money to build it into this queue. And that is like this permanent queue that's there. It's physically always going to be there. You always will walk through it. You might go through a shorter version in some cases if, for example, you do FastPass. So you don't go through the full version of that queue, but you still see a little bit of it. And that's the case at something like Flight of Passage. And in fact, you actually skip quite a bit of that queue with FastPass, and you don't have as good of an experience, but otherwise. Some attractions though, the entire queue just gets filled up, and you'll see that the closer you get to the ride, or at least the merge point where the two lines merge together, Disney merges the lines, and then they have a boarding queue where there's just one singular queue that goes beyond a certain point. Universal doesn't do that as much. But once you get to that point, you have everything is combined. So everyone is seeing the same thing. So your FastPass and your standby queue, they will see everything at the same time. And that's used for an attraction that has a pre-show. For example, at Universal, the Fast and the Furious ride. Actually, no, they don't do that, do they? I'm trying to think. Fast and Furious, yes. With Express, you do go into the pre-show, but they kind of keep you separate. Dinosaur at Animal Kingdom is a really good example. Yes. Thank you, Gavin. That's a great example. Dinosaur at Animal Kingdom, they put you into a briefing room and you learn about Dr. Seeker, and you're going to go back in time to rescue this iguanodon. And that video is required for everyone to see it, not just to set up the story, but also there's safety information in that video. It actually, and the safety information, it shows you the seatbelt mechanism. It shows you the actual movement of the vehicle and how rocky it's going to be, so you can kind of judge if that's going to be too bumpy for you. And it just gives you the idea that, you know, you don't want to be taking pictures and everything because it's going to be that bumpy of an attraction. So that's a safety thing, and it sets up the story. So there's two things that happen there, and everyone goes through that queue at the same time. And that is your immediate boarding queue. So now you've had your regular traditional queue and then your expedited queue, and they've merged together now, and now they've gone into a pre-show, and they come out of that pre-show, it is a merged queue or the final boarding queue, and that's immediately right before you board. And at that point, you will, you know, then you'll meet a grouper if the park is, you know, if it's a decent park, you'll meet a grouper. If it's, you know, like Fun Spot, just go on whatever row you want, you know, who cares, you know, there's probably not a line at Fun Spot anyway. But yeah, no, that brings up a good point. Now, backing up on the opposite side, which goes to your point, you want to spend money as much as possible where people are actually going to be waiting. So if you're designing a queue and people are going to be waiting there, you want to make sure that, you know, so let's say that you calculate, doing all your calculations when you're designing an attraction, that your average wait time is going to be between 20 and 30 minutes. All right. So that's your standby wait. So you look at how long people are going to be in this hallway. And if it's, you know, more than, you know, if like 90% of the time this hallway is going to be filled with people, then you spend money in that area to make it look as good as possible. If you're only using a queue, you know, like 20% of the year, that's not a whole lot of time. So you don't spend as much money. So you build an extended queue there. Now there's two different ways to build an extended queue. You can have an entrance point that everyone goes through the entrance, and then the extended queue goes off into like a separate structure in the back, then you come back into the main queue. That's how something like Escape from Gringotts is designed. There's an extended queue out the back of the place, and that's where everything is. I think Universal actually does a better job with these extended queues because the entrance is still there, always in the same place. Disney's version is different. They will actually move the line out. They will add on additional stanchions and ropes, and it will go way beyond the entrance of the attraction. And then a cast member will be stationed with a sign. Like it's like a sign that says entrance, standby entrance for the Haunted Mansion. It's like a standby sign on a stick. And they'll be there for, like, you know, the People Mover, I see it all the time because the People Mover was backing up for a while now, you know, and things like that. So those are not themed at all. It's just your traditional switchback going back and forth, and you can always, you know, divide it. I got another question here from Blake. What do you consider to be the best theme park queue that I have experienced? If we're talking about a traditional queue, I'd say the Indiana Jones adventure at Disneyland, I think, is pretty much my all-time favorite. It is a directed queue. You actually are moving in one direction because you're actually having to physically go outside of the park. And when you do that, you feel like you're actually progressing on a journey. So it's not this, you know, back and forth kind of thing that you normally get. And there's stuff that happens in there. You can pull a bamboo post, and then the ceiling of the room drops down like a foot, and these spikes start coming out of the room like you're stuck in the room in Temple of Doom. So I love that. Yeah, you get a point that their merge point is so early on at Indiana Jones. It wasn't that way always. I mean, before FastPass, I mean, FastPass changed a lot of things. FastPass broke a lot of stuff. I'm not a huge fan of FastPass, but, you know, it seems like that's the direction we're going in anyway. Everything's going to be, you know, with the coronavirus, it changes how we look at queues entirely. So a lot of this, you know, lesson is based on pre-coronavirus times. So you might see that a lot of this will go out the window when the parks reopen, and that's okay. You know, we'll just have to, you know, think of different ways to, you know, have people wait virtually, so they're not, you know, physically close together, because the way these are all designed, you are always close together no matter what. So that's a big deal. From Doug, at Tomorrowland Speedway, we have covered holes that we put stanchions in when we have an excess amount. Yes, you do. Absolutely. And that's exactly your extended queue. Ryan said, is a Dumbo line and Jimmy Fallon line a variant of a queue? Yes. So if you've been on either of those attractions at the parks, you're actually waiting in a kind of a combined waiting area. It's kind of nice, where you go into the queue, you enter it, and then you're given a pager, and then you, especially with Dumbo, you might have kids, and there was a big playground set up inside. So you can do that, and then they page you when it's your time to come back and ride. Jimmy Fallon is the same kind of way, where you're in a queue at the beginning, and then you get a little card. It's called your how they call it, a boarding pass or a ticket or anything, but it's a peacock feather is really what it is, and they're different colors for the NBC Peacock, which will be part of their streaming. Their streaming service is called Peacock for NBC. Go figure. But then the whole entire room changes color, and that signals that it's your time to go, ride Journey Through New York with starring Jimmy Fallon, right? Yeah. Rise of the Resistance has a good line, said Gianna. Yes, Rise. Now, Rise is interesting. It's not supposed to have a virtual line. It's designed to hide the fact that that attraction is not performing at its operational efficient capacity that it was designed to do. They're using less vehicles, and they're trying to get more and more all the time. And once they get there and it's performing brilliantly, then maybe it can go back. But right now, Rise of the Resistance, if you've heard about it, it uses a boarding pass system. And because of coronavirus, this might be the model in the future for all queues and for everything. And what it does is it kind of creates at the beginning of the day this fastest finger question. So at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever the time is, they let people into the park early. And then, an hour later or half an hour later, they will allow everyone to get on their phones, and you actually, have to click on your party and, how many people are in your party, and you make a reservation for the attraction. And it's not a time-based reservation, it's based on boarding groups. So you just have different numbers. It's kind of a take. Do you remember an old supermarket deli where there was a number and you take a number at the counter and you wait until it's taken? That's what the system is, but it's being done in a way where you can use your phone and you have a window of 2 hours to come back. So that's a big deal there. Disability Access Service, Nora asked about how that exists and how it works for Rise of the Resistance. You still have to have a boarding group, but they actually will put you through the Fast Pass queue. That attraction does not have Fast Pass, but they have the Fast Pass queue. Again, it wasn't designed for this whole boarding group thing. So you still have two main queues. You have your regular standby queue, and then you have a Fast Pass queue. And they will just put people through disability access for Rise. So they save about 20 to 30 minutes, because even when you get called back, you still wait for about that long. Doug says, I saw in the Walt Disney World Disneyland app, there's a new tab for virtual queues, hinting there'll be more virtual queues like the boarding groups. Yes, Doug, that is correct. That's why I believe that might be the future after we come back from coronavirus world. I'm not too thrilled with this version of reality, but that's where we are. So if you do have multiple attractions for virtual queues, I think that will kind of alleviate the problem of the fastest finger question, because what I didn't tell you is that almost every single boarding number is gone within in a minute, maybe 5 minutes for the extended ones at the beginning of the day. So, when 8 a.m. rolls around at Disney's Hollywood Studios, or whatever time it is, by 8:05, if you haven't already gotten a boarding pass, there's no chance at all of you riding that. Even the backup boarding groups are gone by that time. But if you have more attractions all put in there, not everyone's going to choose that attraction. You might not be able to choose more than one. So you'll have other alternates to do and everything. And you could also make it so the boarding passes, get distributed at different times throughout the day to give people that are late risers, a chance to come and ride as well. So that's kind of a big deal. All right, so we have Blake saying, hold on, let's see. Okay, Gavin says, I'm not sure what the solution for queues will be, because if there are thousands of guests not in queues, they'll be clogging the pathways. Yeah, so they probably won't have many people in queues at all. You'll see a reduced window for you to return back to the attraction, maybe, as small as a 5-minute window. And they'll try to keep people very far away from each other, and they will not, go to that full capacity anywhere near it. They'll like half the capacity of the attractions to make sure that no one is clumped in a big group of people. You need to be in a group. No, so Blake asked about if you're a single rider You need to be in a group. No, you have a group of one, Blake. You still get a boarding pass, but you're just a group of one, so you're okay. Oh, I guess Gianna already asked that question. Ryan says, sounds like parks will be pretty much like Volcano Bay. Yeah, that could work. Volcano Bay, though, they do have a lot of people clumping up at the very ends of the attractions, so you're just going to have a lot less people coming at the same time, I think. Jordan Stark, how will that impact people waiting for parades? They won't be any parades. They just won't do them. Yeah, that's the fact of it. Anything that is a large gathering in one place. So fireworks shows gone, parades gone, show-based attractions. I mean, they'll be limited to capacity, so just a few people, and very scattered seats. So there's at least 6 feet between everybody, or every group of people. Because I mean, if you'll want to be next to your significant other, but then the next group will be many people away from them. So. And then we also have to talk about sanitization too. The materials that you build queues out of. I mean, I was reading just the other day that coronavirus can last like up to 3 days on plastic. Well, guess what? A lot of queues are made of plastic, and it lasts like 2 days on stainless steel. Well, we also have a lot of queues that are based on stainless steel. So, the other thing is, like, if you build it out of copper, like the actual stanchions and ropes, the thing dies within like 4 hours, like it's inactive. You're probably not going to get it that way of just touching another object or anything, but that's the thing there. Yeah, big change for Disney. No parades, like canceling fireworks. Future of the parks are just a temporary solution. I hope that it's not permanent, Gavin. I really hope that it's not, but I can't predict the future, not that well. I always try to do the best I can about predicting the future, but this is way beyond me. I didn't predict that the parks would close. I didn't. So that's on me. I wasn't good at that, and it's important to be able to admit when you're wrong. That's a huge thing. You have to be able to admit when you're wrong. There's so many people that don't do that. If the major entertainment portions of the park will be gone, do I predict a major drop in attendance? Well, there's going to be a major drop in attendance anyway. You're talking about public perception of safety here. And going to a theme park doesn't ring very safe immediately. So yeah, no matter what, there's going to be a drop in attendance. And I don't know if, putting up a parade or, a fireworks show is going to really raise the attendance, even if they wanted to do one. So yes, there's a major drop, but it's not because they're not doing a parade or fireworks show. How about that? So good question, Mike. So anyway, any other questions about queuing? I think I covered the basics there. Oh, there's one thing else about having multiple points of service per queue. So normally, like in a supermarket, you have like multiple lines. Let's say Publix, for example. All of you have been to Publix. You have a single queue for every single register. That's actually not the most efficient way to do things. It's actually better if you have multiple registers in just one queue. And that means that you have multiple points of service. Your point of service is the register in that case. And you have one queue leading to multiple registers. We have a couple of attractions at the theme parks that are like that. Soarin' around the world at Epcot actually has 3 points of service. There are 3 identical show buildings, 3 identical rides, and it's just one queue for all of them. So that works like that. When I say one queue, I really mean there's a standby and a fast pass, and technically there's a single rider queue that they never use. But they all converge at one point, and then you go off into the different points of service after that in smaller lines. Toy Story Midway Mania is like that, where there are literally 3 different, well, Toy Story is kind of weirder than Soarin', but one building has 2 rides combined, and the other one is just a separate ride on its own. So that works there. But yeah, I'll post a video of the difference there, and it's almost always better to have multiple points of service for one queue rather than just one queue per point of service. That's why self-checkout is so popular. Yes, at Walmart, that's a good example where they actually have done that, where you have like there's 10 different points of service and only one line, so that works out well. 4 turntables at Smuggler's Run. Yes, that is, I'm not sure if there are 4, but I think that's true. And that's exactly the same kind of thing. Yeah. So there's 4 turntables. So those are 4 different points of service. And if one of them breaks down, oh, Mission Space is another one that's like that. Mission Space has 4 points of service in one queue. So yeah, there's a lot of attractions like that. So I might quiz you, a quiz question might look at, Mission Space is, has these types of features for the attraction to increase guest capacity or guest satisfaction. And, if one of those options would be that it has multiple points of service, that's the one you'd have to, check off. All right. So it's important to understand that and be familiar with the different attractions, at least at the Disney and Universal parks. I'm gonna restrict this class, to those examples because that's what's here in Orlando and that's what I expect you to know.
Professor?
I'm not going to go even to SeaWorld that much. Yes.
So I actually had a question with regards to virtual queuing. One thing, it's kind of a question here, but like, if the theme parks go into a more of a virtual queue, do you think the guest experience might go down a little bit, even though it might be more efficient for the parks? Some people may not have good internet access with their phones or data or whatever the case, and so if they're not able to get the attractions they want, do you think that's going to cause a huge dynamic in terms of the guest satisfaction?
I've never been a huge fan of having to plan your day in the first place. So I think that guest satisfaction will suffer from that, especially with, you mentioned the technical element. I know some Imagineers that absolutely hate the idea of magic bands. They hate phones. Tony Baxter, and he'll be in the Imagineering documentary when you watch that too, so you'll be able to see that. But he hates the idea of a magic band and hates the idea that you pick up a phone and you're looking at your phone half the time you're in a park just trying to plan your next ride. He wants you to live in the moment. And that is really going to be hindered by this whole thing because of coronavirus. I don't see any other way to do it, to do this, remote, kind of callback thing when it's time to go on your attraction. But yeah, I mean, your guess kind of is as good as mine. It's, again, we're entering a different world here, and we'll see how much guest satisfaction drops. I think people are going to be understanding that this is a whole weird world right now. But yeah, Jordan Stark says Universal ran into that sort of problem with people signing up for riding the floats for the Mardi Gras parade. Yeah, I know it used to be just for annual pass holders, and then everyone would like sign up at one time, and then they had some issues. You could sign up for multiple dates at one point because the app wasn't blocking you out for that, and a few other things. So I hope that's been solved. But yeah, I mean, there were a lot of people that were disappointed. Although a lot of people just stopped showing up after the Corona thing happened. And I know it was really easy to get on the parade floats just in the last couple of weeks. So, that kind of solved itself, not for the right reason though. But yeah, I wish I knew on, how much it's going to affect it. It'll definitely affect it that you won't be able to spend as much time in the queue to see what's going on. So that'll be an issue there on its own. But, it's a trade-off. At least we can open the parks if we do that versus have to keep everything closed. They just postponed the Olympics to next year, which is funny because they made an announcement, I don't know if it's yesterday or 2 days ago, where they said they're not even considering it. Well, after they made that announcement, I think Australia pulled out and a bunch of other countries started pulling out of the Olympics, and now they've been postponed. So okay, we'll have the 2021 Olympics. That's a weird one. I hope they'll still stay in 2024 in France. In Paris, that was the whole point of having it that year because it's a 100-year anniversary. So, but I don't think this will last that long. That's many years down the road. But yeah, so no reason to go to Tokyo this summer, I guess. Yeah. All right. Any other questions on queuing theory or queuing in general or any other attractions? If you have an attraction you got a question on and how it operates or anything like that.
What kind of a last question here for you, but what queue do you think needs to be completely revamped or taken away due to the size and capacity of parks today? Do you think there's any queues that are not as efficient or should be taken away?
Well, if you're looking at a size and capacity of parks, you're always trying to expand the capacity anyway. And I would not do that by redesigning a queue. I would do that by building a new attraction to try to spread out the overall capacity around the park more. But if I'm not allowed to do that, let's say there's no budget, to build a new attraction, what queue needs to be rebuilt? Let's see, what ride do I just hate waiting in line for? I hate waiting for the Speedway because there's not enough coverage there. I just don't really like the Speedway at all. I think it's based on, what the attraction is. In my research, when I've done queuing theory research, it's always based on what the attraction is, and how long someone's willing to wait, or at least, how long they perceive they are willing to wait for the attraction. So you might be more willing to wait for an attraction like Splash Mountain than you would be an attraction like the Speedway, because you think that Splash Mountain attraction has a better excitement. It's more of the attraction for you. So that might make a little more sense, and you want to be more comfortable in the queue. So we can talk about some Band-Aid fixes. We'll break off for a second, talk about Six Flags. There are a lot of Six Flags parks that have queues that are outside in the hot sun. You can fix a lot of that by providing a shade structure. You can fix that by providing really fast Wi-Fi in the queue. You can fix that by having misters and fans, things like that. As long as you're providing some of those necessities, I think those are the main things, for a traditional style queue, of course. If we all go to virtual queuing, which we might, things will be a little bit different. Nora says, if the theme parks remain closed for a super long time, do you think the parks will continue to pay cast members until they reopen? I do not. I think that your last paycheck will come the first week of April. And then that's it, unless you're in a position that's still ongoing. If you're in, like a call center or reservations or a managerial position or something. I don't think that they're going to do any mass layoffs, but I don't think that they can afford to pay people continually, because I expect this to be closed for months. Even after dismissing all the CPs, there just aren't enough, jobs that can be sustained. So no, if I was working in a park right now, I would definitely be looking for a different way to make money over this summer. Jazz says, just like Hilton, I feel like they probably put full-time on part-time on furlough. Yeah, furlough. That's a good word for it, I guess. So it's a real shame that that's the case, but I don't really know any other solutions. It's very sad. In the United Kingdom, they're actually, the government is paying 80% of everyone's salary for everything, and you're just not allowed to fire or furlough anybody. I mean, you can just tell them you're not coming to work, but the government will pay for it, for the salaries. So, but we're not in the UK, so. Oh man, the US doesn't suck. We're just different, and we have different government right now. I can't say the US sucks completely because I've been to national parks and I absolutely adore Yellowstone National Park. So I'm biased to the national parks. I love that. But yeah, there are a lot of policies in the US that do suck. I'll give you that. Is it going to affect the summer when viruses actually slow down in the heat? There's a lot of people medically that, first off, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, how much effect that the summer will have. And Jazz actually is right. People will still be afraid to travel, even if it does show that the summer is stopping the virus. People aren't going to, travel as much, especially down to Disney, because they'll, they might be willing to, be in a crowd of, 20 people, in a movie theater or something, but they might not, want to come down to Disney or something. So I think actually some of the businesses that are in the best place to reopen quickly are escape rooms, because you can sanitize the room and you can just do individual groups for each room after this. So that might actually work okay. You just have to make sure that everything gets sanitized. So it might, be like 20 minutes in between when you can take people, because you have to wash off every single lock. You have to wash off every single key, everything like that. Do I think the virus will delay the presidential race? I have no idea. Yeah, I'm going to stay away from that question. I have no idea. Yeah, there was always even before this happened, there was always a RIC for travel. I don't know if a travel for trade. I don't know what that means, Gianna. I'm sorry. What's a RIC? Oh, risk for travel. Okay, yes. Yeah, there's always a risk for travel, but yeah, no, I know. It's okay. I make typos all the time. As long as you don't turn in an assignment with typos, you can reread that, but live chat, you're on your own, just, I don't care if you type things weird in live chat. But don't turn in any assignments that way. Your professors will not like you. Risk for travel is always there for, if you get on a plane and everything. I mean, maybe people start driving, because they'll, driving is you're in your own car. You're not really being, you're not mixing with other people. No one else is in your car and everything. So there's less risk there. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I don't think that the crowds are going to start recovering until around Halloween. I think I posted that on my Twitter. But you can also follow me on Twitter. It's just Bills Netty is my handle there. So, but yeah. So anyway, this lecture, I think we're going to wrap up soon, unless there's any other questions. I'm going to post this lecture on YouTube. I'm going to post a link to it. Please follow my account on YouTube so you get all the updates when we go live. It's just youtube.com/BillsNetty, I believe, and I'll post that link on web courses. How Zoom works, the Zoom video, I think, won't get posted until the next day because Zoom doesn't have the processing power that Google does, like for YouTube. So it'll be a little bit different that way. So any other questions before we all sign off today? Once a week, we'll do a meeting like this, as long as this works out okay. Anything we could have done better? I'm going to try to get a better set and a better microphone for next week. It just so happened I couldn't be home right now. My car is actually being fixed, and I'm actually at a car dealership right now getting my car fixed. So it's nice that the car dealership actually gave me this little office here. So I'm just kind of on my own in the office. Yes, I'll wash my hands. Wash your hands like Mr. Burns. Yes, yes, yes. Reminders on web courses are helpful. Good, I will keep doing that. I'll keep posting the announcements there. Again, though, if you subscribe on YouTube, you're going to get those announcements too when I go live. And if you're, a little late for these things, I'll try to, keep it interesting for at least 5 minutes. So you have that. Anything else? All right. Well, with that said, I'm going to let everybody go. If you have any other questions, please keep in mind there will be a discussion this week. I'm going to post that pretty much in the next 10 minutes. If you didn't do the discussion board last week, you can do it this week. That's no problem. I'm not going to really push late assignments and everything. I know this has been a huge deal for a lot of people. And I'm probably going to start opening up the modules ahead of time so you get a chance to work on things, but I haven't completed all of them, setting them up for you. So I'll start doing that as soon as everything is ready. But I'll try to get, because we have pretty much just the month of April, and then, that's it. So I'm going to try to get everything set up a little early. So if you can work on it, early, that's okay too. But I'm not going to enforce any late deadlines. Except when it gets to the last week of class. So, all work for this class is probably going to be due no later than like April 20th, sometime around then. I'm not sure about that actual date, but that week of April 20th, that'll be the last time. Randomized quizzes are not going to exist, but we will have quizzes based. They're going to be regular quizzes. You'll have a week to take it, basically, at least 5 days. And it'll be based on, what we talk about in the lecture. So you have to watch the lecture, even if you weren't attending this, live, you'll still have to watch it. And then there'll be some questions in there about that. And then the questions are also going to be pulled from reading materials, YouTube videos that I'm going to post, some discussions that I'm going to have, and then the stuff that I'm going to have you watch on Disney Plus, which is the Imagineering series. If you weren't here earlier, you have to get Disney Plus and watch the entire Imagineering series. There's 6 episodes. Each episode is between 60 and 75 minutes. And that won't be due until mid-April. But there will be a quiz on the Imagineering series. So anything else? I think we're good. All right, guys. Well, I will see you next week, or at least you'll see me. And I wish you all the best. Please wash your hands, stay safe, and stay clean. All right, stay healthy.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too.
See you real soon.